Yo, what's up? This is Blvnkspvce, and I'm gonna walk you through how me and Sqishi made our track 999 Trash, which is out now on Sounds of Mayhem. So, a little bit of a backstory before I get into the track. This track was actually started on a Twitch live stream that me and Sqishi were doing, and we were doing a little competition who could make the best song at the fastest tempo possible. So this track was actually started at 999 BPM, which I believe is the fastest tempo you can play in Ableton. So 999 divided by 8 is what, like 124.87 something. So we just moved the tempo down to 125 so we can actually work with it in the DAW. And yeah, that was the basis of this track. I mean, it's kind of started as like a meme, kind of a joke, but it was ended up being a cool idea. And we sent stems back and forth probably 5 or 6 times. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of like the serum patches and like all of the individual channels, but I still have everything, and I'll walk you through how and why we did everything. So yeah, let's get into it. The intro just starts out. The first 8 bars are just these vocals. I'll just play those by themselves. So yeah, that's just Sqishi talking. I don't really know what he's saying, to be honest with you, but there's just a ton of distortion and OTT on that. And then the first word just loops and filters in for the first four bars. And yeah, that's the whole 8 bars of the track. It's just that vocal playing. And then right before the actual intro starts, there's just a couple sweeps and risers that move into it. A little drum fill too. That's the first 8 bars. The next 8 bars, the actual intro, is fairly simple. It's mostly just drones and ambience that are playing. Right here is a couple drone layers. So yeah, it's just like 2 or 3 different drone and ambience layers, and then there's that perk layer you hear playing on top of that, just to kind of keep the beat moving forward. And then on top of that, there is this beep sound. This beep sound plays throughout the entire track pretty much. It plays in the intro, plays in the drop, and then it also plays in the breakdown. So that's kind of like the main component of this track that we worked around. So I'll play it. I'll play the drop version, the drop synth. It's just like a sine wave beep that pitches up. And then for the intro sound, we just took that, bounced it out, and put a bunch of reverb on it and some EQ and filtering. So that, yeah, that plays throughout the whole track, and it kind of sets the tone for the whole track and then teases the drop a little bit in the intro. So you have that, you have a bunch of drones and ambience, and then there's just a ton of effect layers that everything just kind of sits on top of. A couple downlifters, sweeps, and like bubbles and lasers and stuff like that. So that's the whole intro. There's not much to it. You do hear this vocal start to come in that plays in the build-up, and it kind of filters itself in. So that kind of teases the next section, which would be the build-up. So we'll start here at the bottom. The build-up, the main part of the build-up, I think, is this vocal sample that was just playing. It's just some vocal chop that I found and chopped up, and then it just pitches up and speeds up throughout the build-up. Another vocal gets layered on top of it halfway through the build-up too. And so there's that vocal that kind of carries, and there's obviously just a ton of effects, risers, downlifters, and then there's like a sub sweep that's rising throughout the whole build-up. Just pretty straightforward risers. There's all those same drones and ambience from the intro. They play again in the build-up. They're just a little bit quieter, and then they loop over here as well. You'll hear them just start to loop and get faster. There's a couple, there's this like emergency siren thing that I believe Sqishi added. It just kind of fits the vibe with like the beeps and like all the drones and stuff. Works really well with the beep sounds. There is these lasers, which are playing in like a triplet pattern. Again, just to kind of tease the drop, since the whole drop, pretty much the whole track is in triplets. So we have these triplet lasers, just to kind of, you know, get you familiar with the flow and yeah, I guess just the flow of the whole track. And then you've got your basic build-up drums, just a kick, a hat, and then a snare that comes in. So that's the whole build-up all together. So before the drop, there's this little pre-drop breakdown section. This is like my favorite part of the track. I love these like the super saw melody that plays. Again, it's playing like a triplet pattern. I just think it fits like the vibe really well and sets you up for the drop really well. So there's that. And then there's basically just a ton of effects playing in the background to fill out space of this pre-drop section. I'll play all those together.
Tell me what you mean.
Yeah, it's just general like ambience, drones, a couple risers, and like just reverb. Then you have your pre-drop vocal, which is again just super distorted.
Tell me what you mean.
You have a couple snare rolls and like a gun sound. Just moving into the drop. And then also this beep sound again, it plays, but this time it's like filtering in, sweeping into the drop. You can hear how that sounds. So it's just basically opening up a low pass filter, opening up and sweeping nicely into the clean or dry beeps, I guess. And that transitions nicely into the drop. So that is the whole intro and build up. Let's move into the drop. There's not a ton of layers in the drop, but they all work together really nicely. So we'll start at the top with the drums. It's just a basic kick and snare and hat. And then there's this metal layer, which is just an open cymbal that's just playing in the background, filling out space again. Those are all the drums. I don't think I have anything in a mixer track in this project because this was kind of the final bounce of the stem, so everything was pretty much almost final. Just had to make a couple tweaks to these final stems, but yeah. So moving into the drop, this main sound is this is how the track started. It was basically just this. And this sound is just, I believe, a perk sound or like some random drum hit, just with a couple effects on it to make it sound more like a bass or a synth. And then there's one more layer on that that's playing the same melody, or the same flow, which is this laser. And that laser combined with this gives it more of like a transient and a little bit more width too. So that's the main bass, and then you layer that with the beep that pitches up, and that's basically the whole drop. That's your whole drop. You have a couple fills, and vocals that play throughout it as well. Little FL Studio startup sound. And so that's your whole drop. The sub, I think, carries though. The sub in this track I made in Serum. It's pretty much how I make most of my subs. It's just going to be a sine wave, white noise, and then either like diode 1 or 2 distortion, and then or sinefold distortion. And so once you have that, once you have like your noise sub, it's pretty cool to take like a notch filter or a format filter or even a peak and throw that on top of the sub, and I'll show you how you can get some cool subtones out of just like an EQ or a format filter if it opens. So yeah, this is really how I do a lot of my subs, especially these long like sustained subs, like the nasally sounding ones. You literally just get a peak and just sweep it through and find a cool spot. So yeah, that's how I made the sub, and then there's probably like an OTT to boost those highs a little bit, and then a disperser on there as well. So let me play all of the synths and fills and everything together without the drums. Again, pretty straightforward. It's not the craziest sound design ever. It's just a couple sounds that complement each other really nicely. And then there's quite a few background layers, so let me go into those. And it's just like a perk with reverb. There is a string that I use in almost every single one of my tracks. I use a like a high string, like a high violin playing in the background. It's such a good way to fill out space and add tension to your track too. So that just plays throughout the whole drop. Super simple, but it's such a good way to add space, fill out space and tension. And then there's a couple just vocals with reverb and downlifters and stuff like that. And that is the whole drop. Like I said, fairly straightforward. I'll play it all together.
Tell me what you mean.
So there's this little breakdown, this little 1-bar turnaround section before the switch, which is just a lot of the same effects from the pre-drop section.
New style.
Just a new vocal sample, more effects. And then that same supersaw that plays in the pre-drop plays again. It's just playing a little bit of a different melody this time. Some bubbles, and then this beep, it's just reverbed out and then reversed, so it again flows into the next section. And then the switch up, everything is the same except the beep. It just changed the tone of it a little bit, probably with a format filter. There's another tiny little synth added just to fill out a little bit more space in the switch. So I'll play all those together. And then besides that, there's a sustain that comes in the switch. And this sustain, I made it using that same technique I talked about when I make my subs. It's basically just a sine wave with a little bit of white noise and distortion, and then just a ton of different peaks and notches and format filters and frequency shifters. But yeah, for the most part, it's just a sine wave. So that comes in. And then after the first 16 bars of the drop, it goes straight into another build-up. So that build up is pretty much the same as the first build up. There's just a couple more snares added. Just a triplet chop snare. And for the second drop, it's mostly the same thing. Obviously, you have a different snare that comes in. There's a little layer on the snare too. And then all of the same synths except the beeps are taken out, and then that main synth is the same thing. It's actually just reversed. So let me show you how easy that was. So this is the this is the first drop synth. And then I literally just reversed it, and it creates that cool like sweeping synth sound. And then just threw that in there. Yeah, besides that, everything is the same in this drop. There's just no sustain, and then there's no beeps or laser sound, because this reverse sound didn't really need the supporting layer. Yep, everything else is the same, and then after that drop, move into the mid section, which introduces this new vocal sample. And then in the break, there's also this amen break that kind of filters itself in. And then a couple snares play on top of that just to support it. Give the beep. And everything else is still the same. In this second build up, there's just again a couple more snares added to switch it up a little bit from the first build up. And you go into the third drop, which is all the same sounds. They're just playing a little bit different flow, and there's a couple sounds added on top of it. So in the third drop, it's playing just straight eighth notes instead of triplets. And then this laser sound in the first drop is just processed a bit differently. And then you have just a couple more supporting layers. Let's see. Besides that, everything else is the same. Here's your third drop.
What you mean?
And yeah, that is pretty much all of it. This is a pretty straightforward track. There wasn't a ton going on in the intros or anything, and the sound design is all fairly simple. And yeah, that is how we made 999 Trash. Out now on Sounds of Mayhem. If you haven't, go stream the whole thing and the whole comp. And thanks for watching. Peace out.